Welcome to our Cooperate podcast, in which we explore some of the recent developments in innovation, research and technology across Europe. My name is Marcel Bogers. I'm a professor of open and collaborative innovation at Eindhoven University of Technology. And I'm happy to be joined in this podcast today by Els Vandevelde. Welcome. You're working actually here at Idea Consult. And you're also one of the partners in our project consortium. And my first question to you, if you can say a little bit more about yourself and your role here, and maybe you can say a little bit about what you do at Idea Consult.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure to be here. So Idea Consult is a research-based consultancy that's based on Brussels, and we work for governments. So we work at the regional level, national level, and European level, mainly doing research-based consultancy, so implying that we have a lot of PhD students working here, really emphasizing the importance of solid conclusions, solid data-based work in order to inform policy. Myself, I'm a team leader and senior expert in the ICS team, which is about innovation and competitiveness and sustainability. It's a team of about 20 people that we have here at Idea Consult, where it is really occupied on the one hand side with innovation and competitiveness, of course, but also looking a lot on regional innovation, how to strengthen regional innovation collaboration across the borders. And hence, that's also why, of course, we became very interested in the Cooperate project, which is about ecosystems and inter-regional collaboration and collaboration between the ecosystems, exchange of experiences, best practices, and so on.
Yeah. And I think with that background, you the specific role that you and have played in the project is also to emphasize, let's say, more the policy angle of this project, which obviously is quite an important one and links very well to your expertise. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that angle? So the policy perspective and how important it is in that context of developing those ecosystems.
Yeah. So as you probably know, there is a lot of policy also at the EU level. So for the Cooperate and for the Era Hubs concept, it was important to identify what's the right place for it, where should it be positioned, also versus the other policies that are currently ongoing. So in that regard, we had quite some work to position it well and to identify the added value of what it could offer, because throughout the project, we could clearly identify the need. It was also expressed by various stakeholders that there is a true need to have it. But other sides, we also acknowledge very well to avoid the burden, to have an additional layer of policies, of additional efforts to put there. So that's why we try to balance, to have it as lean as possible, but also to have as effective as possible.
Yeah. So I think I should stress those were also some of the learnings we had throughout the project. So I think it would be interesting to tell a little bit more about it, because we tried to make the projects very, of course, we had a whole conceptual part about, what do we mean by era hubs and then all the different aspects of ecosystems and so on. But it was also very hands-on in different ways by engaging with different types of stakeholders. Can you say a little bit more about that process? It's also something that you work with, of course, in the project. And what were really some of the key learnings from that?
Yep. So indeed, the Era Hub is all about the R&I ecosystem, which is, of course, which we all acknowledge is very important. Also, policy-wise, there's a lot of emphasis towards knowledge valorization, making sure that knowledge is not just generated, but also validized within the communities, both business-wise, but also society-wise. So that aspect we really discussed with stakeholders in various ecosystems, as you said yourself, in the Netherlands, in Czech Republic, in Denmark, also in France, in order to identify what is now truly hindering this knowledge valorization and what is now needed in order to make sure that the true valorization, the uptake, the deployment of technology and knowledge, as we call them, is truly taking place. And is no longer as often or too often as happening, moving towards US or China or Asia or other countries outside of Europe.
So I think as such, this whole notion of knowledge valorization became quite a central topic also in the project, of course. And what I've also learned from you, so my question is if you can say a little bit more about it as well, is how that then connects to some of the developments in the policy domain, because I think there have been different insights, different developments that really put knowledge valorization as a more central concept in various types of policies, if I understand it.
Yeah. So on the one hand side, of course, the HRTD has launched the knowledge valorization platform in which there are various actions that are taking place. They have assembled various case studies in order to showcase what it can be and what it can apply to truly valorize knowledge. On the other hand, of course, we have the era actions of the previous era policy, where several actions were emphasizing truly the knowledge valorization. Not all of the era actions were endorsed, but it still emphasized the importance. And now, of course, very recently, a few weeks ago, the era policy, the new era policy came out, and there we see again that knowledge valorization is really acknowledged as a structural policy. So you see that the importance is continuing to be emphasized in the various policy documents issued by HRTD.
And what do you think will be some of the implications of that for maybe people like myself doing research on it and trying to have a positive impact on the actual development of ecosystems or other types of stakeholders in that domain? Is it going to change some of the practices in the future or the different projects that people will work on?
Yeah, well, at least we sincerely hope so, because RNI ecosystems and the development of them is extremely essential for the future growth, not only of the regional ecosystem, but also of Europe and the strengths. There was a lot of talk about reducing dependency, creating more strength within the ecosystems in Europe. So I think, at least in my personal opinion, RNI ecosystems are the way forward to do so. So now having it as a structural policy, I sincerely hope that it will continue to be very important and also being reflected in the work programs and the individual calls.
Yeah. And to what extent has it already changed some of the project proposals or some of the ideas that you start to get involved in? Do you already see a development that's trying to adjust to some of the policy changes?
Well, we do see that the concept within the project, we worked also a bit on who should orchestrate this RNN ecosystem. So we started to explore the fourth generation university concept. And we see that we get traction on the concept, on that notion. And we do expect in the near future to see some calls coming out to further elaborate the concept, what it could imply, how one could implement and develop it further. So that's something we would expect, yes.
And from that experience, what have you seen being some of the most valuable aspects of that concept that seem to resonate with ecosystems?
Well, the fact that it looks at all four dimensions. I think most thinking about RNI, it's also about research innovation. People can see this. I think more and more people can also see the entrepreneurial aspect, but being able to also connect it to society, the societal needs, and also reflect vice versa, that research, although of course basic research should stay there, it has a very prominent role to play, but it should also, to the extent possible, answer or be able to be addressed to solve or address some of societal needs. And having that aspect, I think, and that connection, I think is very valuable.
Yeah. So, and of course, the idea of the fourth generation university is that it connects some of those themes. So it's really about addressing societal challenges, but also being locally grounded in the region and make those connections, while focusing very much on the orchestration, as you also say, of the local ecosystem. And that in itself implies, as we also had some focus, I think, in the project, the role of universities or maybe knowledge institutes in general. So what is your perspective on that? Will that fundamentally change how this orchestration of ecosystems work? Will there be, where do the opportunities lie to make that happen?
Well, for me, the main opportunity lays in the much better governance of all those, because now in some regions it's happening, but in a very loosely unstructured way, making it very difficult for other ecosystems to reach out, who to reach out to, where to go to, if you have the right person or not that you actually talk to. Having such a system much more organized and structured allows for a much more efficient way of internal in the ecosystem, but also across ecosystems, because there is a point where you can really speak to what is actually happening on the ground. And that really, we see this in some of the well-developed regions, and that really facilitates the knowledge valorization inside the ecosystem, but also across ecosystems.
Yeah, and maybe you can say a little bit more about that, because I think in many cases, in many other projects, also in my case, we focus very much on the development on a particular ecosystem. But what is the specific value of also having a more cross-ecosystem perspective? What would be the benefits of that?
The true benefit is the exchange of experiences, because often the regions face the same challenges. Like now, the water, the drought, there are some specific challenges, and some regions are a bit further advanced already in identifying solutions. It's not like one can just copy paste solution, but already be able to speak to those people and to know how to tune them towards your settings, to understand what it works and what needs to be tuned, the parameters, really helps a much more efficient and faster solution for that other region. And also vice versa, of course, because that region for sure also already solved some of their challenges, can then be imported or exchanged in the other regions. So we see on a practical basis that it truly helps and allows both regions or both ecosystems to scale up much faster than they would be able to do the individual.
Yeah. So my final question is how we can continue with the results of our projects also within the broader developments of the policy landscape.
From my personal perspective, I think it would be great if we could at least have some RNI ecosystems using the tools that we have developed, because there is clearly a need for it, and that they can truly benefit from some of the tools, the playbook, self-assessment that we have developed, to use it, to apply it, in order to further strengthen their RNI ecosystem. And it's not only the well-developed that can benefit from it, but also less developed, because all of them truly have room to further improve their knowledge valorization aspects. So I think for me, that would be a very nice outcome if you would manage to do that.
Okay, well, let's work on it together, hopefully in the future. And thanks for your contribution to this podcast. And thanks for listening to the Cooperate podcast. And stay tuned on more developments. Thank you.